In this video, you will learn how we mixed and mastered my remix of Fly Away. It went from sounding like this to sounding like this. We're going to break down all the mixing and mastering techniques and secrets so you can take your song to the next level. Now, before we jump in, we're giving away 100,000 MIDI chord progressions. Leave a comment of what you've learned and we'll select one winner from the first 100 comments. Let's jump in. What's the process once you get all the audio files and how do you break it down?
Yeah, so for me, first thing that's for every mix that's so important is organization. So when I get a bunch of stems from an artist, first thing I'm always doing is importing and organizing them by, drums, bass, music, vocals, SFX. It's super important that, to me, when I'm working, I can keep my flow and, know where everything is when I need to look for it.
Right. Now, there's mixing and then there's mastering. Can you explain, what the difference actually is? Because there's so much confusion around what this actually process is about.
Totally. Absolutely. So mixing is the process of taking all these individual stems and balancing them, getting the volume levels right between each element, and then putting focus on, do I want the bass to be prominent? Do I want the music to be prominent? How bright do I want stuff? How dark do I want it? Do I want it punchy? Do I want it soft? That's the process of mixing, is taking all these individual stems and just balancing them together.
And then they all go to the master channel, basically.
Yeah, and then this all flows down just like water. It flows down in my session, all down to the bottom right here on the master channel, where I have the mix bus, where everything's getting processed together as a unit.
Gotcha.
As one whole song.
Okay, that's great. So the way you start the mix, though, how do you start this whole process? Because you have how many stems? You have 50 stems, right? Or
yeah.
I don't know how many there is, but where's the starting point, especially with this genre of dance music?
For sure. It always can seem a bit underwhelming or overwhelming when you get a session in and there's 50 plus stems. But to me, the easiest way, once I have everything imported and organized, is I love to just attack the kick and the bass, because to me, the kick and the bass are the foundation of a great mix. If the low end is working, then I know I'm going to have a great mix. And especially for dance music, we got to have the low end just absolutely knocking, because it's got to hit in the club, it's got to hit at the festival, it's got to hit in the car. If your low end's no good, it's going to sound weird when you go from one song to the next big artist. So we got to always make sure.
This one you replaced, so we can just start off at the fact you even replaced the kick from the get-go, because it didn't sound...
Yeah, so Niko sent me a great mix, great rough mix, and... one thing I noticed, though, was that the kick felt like it wasn't really punching right. Niko sent me, right here, we got Niko's kick, and then this is the kick I ended up replacing it with. If you look here, you can see Niko's kick's kind of long and really subby, which to me interferes with the bass that we got going on down here. So I chose a punchier kick that's a little bit shorter. So I'll play Niko's kick in the mix, and then I'll play the after. And then this is with my kick. So I switched them in between.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it really does matter. If you even play the song without the kick, what happens if you play a song without the kick?
Man, the kick is everything for this genre. If we take it out, you can hear how crazy this sounds. So that's why the kick is the first thing you mess with, and then the bass level. So you did a ton of cool stuff with the bass here as well, and really brought out a nice punch to it. So can you just walk through the processing behind that? Because this is ninja level shit. Totally. So with the bass, Niko sent me 2 stems for the bass. You see 4 here. That's because I did some magic with duplicating and just doing some extra processing. But I'll break down this first bass we got here is the mid bass. This is kind of the mid-range frequencies, the upper mid-range. This is what's going to cut through on the speakers, on the iPhone speakers. This is the really important, this is what people hear. This is really what they feel, but more hear. So that was a great stem. Just did some slight EQ moves to that. All I did was just pull up
this Pro Q, and I'm pushing the upper mid range and the high end to kind of help that cut through.
Yeah, it adds that nice top end.
That cuts through, and then just a little bit of limiting to control the peaks.
What you did next was really
so then I felt like, this is a good sound, but how can I get more out of this? I want this to sound huge because this is a drop. We got to make sure it really punches through. So I duplicated the channel, exact same processing, and then on this channel I added EQ to take out the low end, and then I just crushed it with some decapitator, just doing some distortion to really bring out those harmonics of that bass sound. So I'm doing like 7.1 on this full mix. I'll play just that sound. And then I'm also adding some width because I want this to be really big bass.
For sure.
And
so when it comes to width, like when you're actually mixing stuff, if you think about width, the way I think about it is like you can pan things, right? So if you pan a clap all the way to the left, you only hear it in like the left headphone. And then the right headphone has nothing if you put something to the right. So you do it the bass, you make it wide so that it really encompasses like the whole mix.
Absolutely. Because I want the listener, I want them to feel wrapped. Like I want them to feel like the music's wrapped around their head.
For sure.
So I'll play those together. So it just brings it to life. And then the second stem Niko sent was a sub bass. Now the sub, that's the deep lows. That's what we feel in the car. That's at the club. Like the sub is crucial. So I'll play what Niko sent on that. Just doing some small EQ moves here, some bumps around the fundamental, adding some harmonics with our bass, adding a little bit of pump for that sidechain effect to really get a ducking with the kick, and then just making sure it's not clashing with that upper bass. So I wanted it to really sound deep, and then I did a similar thing that I did to the upper bass. I just duplicated it. And then I'm just crushing it with the decapitator, adding some width, and
but that's not sub. That's almost like a mid. That's like 100.
Yeah, it's a mid. I'm trying to add more lower mid harmonics, because that's really what's going to cut through on speakers that can't reproduce that low end.
Yeah. So you play that with the kick.
Yeah, let's hear all this with the kick. This is with nothing on it, and then I'll put it on in the middle. Just bring
it's a massive difference, and that's kind of what, if you play the whole track together, you can really hear it on the drop. So what I'm realizing from what you're doing is, one, the kick selection is very, very important, and then making some EQ moves. But the second thing you really did here was double processing, or what's it called exactly?
Just parallel processing.
Parallel processing the actual instruments to just give it more fullness and make this thing sound just more full and professional.
Yeah.
And then from there, what's your next step in the process?
So after I have the kick and the bass dialed in, next thing I'm going to attack is all this other percussion we have here. So we got some hi-hats, some claps. I'm going to just balance these all, set the volume compared to the kick and get it sitting right.
Now, what's the way you typically figure out these levels? Like, how loud should the hi-hat be? Because, all right, you could say, okay, I raise it up a little bit, I raise it down. Like, where do I go to figure out how loud it should actually be?
The tough answer is that it takes time, and a lot of it is taste-based. After listening to a lot of music and doing this a long time, I kind of know where I want stuff. But for the answer for the beginner and somebody just starting out is, you got to reference. You got to listen to other tracks that you love, and listen with intent. You got to listen, how loud is the clap compared to the kick? How loud is that hi-hat? Is the hi-hat bright? Is it dark? Just start training your ear to listen for these things, because it's not normal for us to listen like that. But once you do it, it'll change your whole way.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is, like, a lot of producers will say just figure out the ear and learn stuff. But the one thing that I found, and I'm not being paid by them, is Sound Gym is an incredible resource for you to actually understand all the things Ryan's doing in this mix, to be able to hear the compression. Like now, after doing Sound Gym for years, if a snap has too much attack to it, like it hits too hard, it's piercing, I could hear that. Versus in the past, I had no idea because my ears were not trained, right? So
absolutely,
you can do it with Sound Gym a lot faster. So I highly suggest doing it. I'll put a link down below too.
Yeah. Could not agree more.
Yeah. Okay, so from there, you basically,
So let's go into the drums. On the drop, we got the kick. Got a perk stem. I just did some small leveling with that. Nothing too crazy. We got a hi-hat bus here. So on this hi-hat, when I got it, it was a little bit too harsh. I'll play how it was. It was just piercing my ears, so I wanted to take some of that edge off. Get it sitting in the mix. Next, we got the clap. The clap was sounding good, but I felt like it needed a little bit more body, so that's why I went to the EQ here, and I added some low mids and took off a little bit of the top end. I just wanted it to sit in the mix better. Yeah.
And then from there, what's the next step?
And there, I have all my drums going to a aux channel right here, a group where I can process all the drums together as one.
So you're not okay. So the drums, to be clear, you're not sending everything to the mastering chain. You're sending it to the individual bus.
Yep.
And then from the bus, everything then gets routed. So you're really gluing, because you can glue it together.
Yep.
Like that's how you make it sound more cohesive.
Yeah, I like to do multiple stages of gluing. I don't like to put all that pressure on just the mix bus, because honestly, it could be a little too much for the mix bus to handle. So if I can get some more glue out of my groups, I always do that any chance I get.
So what's this?
So this is a black box. This is a great saturator. This is just adding, some harmonics and a little bit of brightness and just kind of pushing everything together. Next, I got the API 2500. This is a great compressor. This kind of just glues all the sounds together. And after that, I got a little bit of EQ moves. Felt like I needed a little bit more 300.
What's that thing right there, the duck?
The duck? So this, I felt like there's a little hardness. Yeah.
Right there was a little... Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't enjoying that frequency. And then last, I got some Kramer tape, just a little tape emulation, just to glue it even more.
What does that mean? Is that like saturation?
Yeah, so back in the days, they used to use tape, but basically it just kind of glues everything together and adds some harmonic.
All right, so the drums are settled, the kick is settled, the bass is settled. What's the next step? Is it the vocal?
For me, personally, I like to say my vocals for last.
Okay.
I like to attack all the music first to make sure that's sitting right, and it's also important to listen to the artist and what's important to them on that mix. So I know for Niko Lavendi, the piano's got to be hitting perfect. So that was the next thing I attacked on this one. So I pulled up the pianos. I want to make sure it was hitting right. So Niko sent a great piano stem. I noticed that, it felt like it was very side heavy. It's just there's with every channel there's the middle and the sides. The sides is kind of the left and right and the outside information. And I felt like it was a little too wide, because I know Niko layers his pianos. He likes to layer them.
Yeah.
So I just added some of that middle to bring some body back to the piano.
Yeah, there's like 5, as you saw in the last video I made. There's like 5 different layers.
Yeah.
And some of it's fully to the left and fully to the right.
Yeah.
Which you lose that middle section, which is it's one of the most important parts when you look at the stereo image of songs, right?
Yeah. So that sounds like this. Yeah, and that makes, you got to listen on headphones to hear that one. And it may seem subtle, guys, but trust me, all these small moves add up in a mix. Every small move I do is going to add up as everything comes together on one track for the final mastering. You really got to small moves add up so quick. So after the EQ, I love the CLA Unplugged. It's one of Niko's favorite plugins.
You can overdo this, guys, and destroy your instruments. Like you can get them too distorted. So you gotta be careful with that.
This one's fun to use because it's easy. The knobs are easy, but you can definitely ruin your sound. You can make it sound super harsh, too compressed. But for this is a dense dance track. So in order to get the piano to really stand out, I needed it to be compressed. I needed that high end. And so I just added some top here and some spank. Got to spank the piano. And a little bit of width. So I'll play that on and
the other
off.
one, spank, slap.
We got spank. CLA's he's a dirty guy, man. He's got bite on here.
What does it say over there?
We got
spank. What are the other ones?
Push,
slap, spank,
bite. Yeah.
tight. Okay.
Yeah, this is a PG-13.
Chris Lord allergy.
This is a PG-13 plugin, guys.
Jesus, dude.
This
My
is
God.
PG-13.
Okay.
But I'll play this in the mix on and off, and you guys can hear the difference.
It really cuts through.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm adding in some level there, which is going to make it perceived to be better. But there's definitely some compression and definitely some EQ moves going on. And lastly, just a little bit of pump just to get it, flowing with the track. After that, we added in these soft pianos to kind of fill out the spectrum to get a more full range piano. This is a beautiful, beautiful layer. This is Niko showing off his piano skills.
For sure. Now I'm confused there because you're adding you're adding bass to the piano stem. Like, isn't that going to conflict with the bass?
Yeah,
or it just sounds.
That's a huge misconception, guys. That adding low end is gonna in the EDM world. People love to cut everything below like 100 or 200 because you want the kick and bass to shine. That is true. But sometimes, guys, it's so easy to cut way too much out, and you lose that body and that life.
Which is what I did when I produced it. I cut a lot of it out because I was worried too much.
Yeah. So all I do is just bring a little bit back in just to get it to fill out more.
Right.
It sounds like that. And then lastly, we got this lead. And this stem was mixed great. I didn't have to do anything to it, just a little bit of leveling. And nice. So we got all the music sounding great. Next step for me is to bring the vocals in. And
what about the effects, real quick?
The FX. We can't forget about these. So in EDM, the FX are crucial. The white noise, the risers, like this is what gets the crowd hyped up. So we got these going on in the background. And these didn't need anything, guys. Niko did a great job with these. These fit right in the track. Nice. So once we got that all working together, I like to attack the vocals. And, this isn't going to be your typical processing for vocals. These already had a lot of processing done to them when they came my way. So, typically you're going to see a ton of EQ, compression, and a lot of effects going on to get a vocal sitting right. But for this session, we didn't need to do any of that, really. I did some small EQ to control the highs and a little bit of harshness. And just added some reverb because I wanted it to really fill out. This is the drop, so I wanted it to feel big when the vocals came in. Yeah. I wanted to feel like you were flying away. And
we worked on this together, thinking I was like, hey, we should add reverb here, and you decided, okay, we'll add this much and do stuff like that. But really, if you play even just the before and after, and again, I found these vocals online, so they're already processed. Like each vocal typically has a process the engineer does, so it sounds great. So we didn't have to do that much here. And I did some on my own as well, right? But you really cleaned up and made it sound pro level here.
I had a dream that someday I would just fly away.
And then this is with the processing.
I had a dream that someday I would just fly away.
Yeah.
And then if you play it with all together with
I had a dream that someday I would just fly away. And I always knew I couldn't stay.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, it just mixed really well and it sounds nice all together.
Absolutely. So I'm just adding a little bit of reverb on my sends here and some half note delay and quarter note
delay. So what are
delay.
sends exactly? What does that mean?
Sends means I'm keeping the signal, the direct signal the same, and I'm sending a copy of it to another channel down here where I'm doing different processing.
So like you have like a reverb one, you have a delay one. This is basically what you did with the bass.
Yep.
But instead of sending volume somewhere, you just doubled the track.
So for vocals and stuff, I like to have different sends already set up. I don't want to have to double it and add all those plugins
for sure
for every time, but it's very much the same as duplicating a channel and doing processing.
Okay, cool. And then from there, so the vocal fits nicely. We started with the drop, obviously, because that's the most important part of the song. But how do you look at the rest of the song from here? Like, do you go to the other sections?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do from here?
For sure. So after the chorus in the drop section is really dialed in, Then it's all about, making sure that energy from section to section translates. Because we got to make sure it's not like a super energetic drop and then it just drops off into nothing and you lose the dance floor or you lose the crowd. So for me, the most important things when I'm looking at a mix is if I'm going from a big drop into a verse, I want to make sure the bass kind of keeps a similar energy. Whether that's in how deep it sounds or in terms of volume, I want to keep that energy alive with the bass as well as the drums. So I'll play a transition here from the drop into the verse.
I was feeling, I was scared to reach for it all, knowing I was here for a reason, but I was scared that if I tried I'd fall. So where do I go now that I'm in it? I never thought it'd be like this. Dreaming all my life and I did it. Thought the grass was greener than it is. 'Cause I had a dream.
Yeah. So I'll break down a couple of things I did on this verse to really make it shine. The first thing was making sure that bass was at the proper level coming out of the verse. The vocals, I want to keep that energy up. Everything else didn't need a ton of processing because it carries over from the drop. But as we're going along here, this kick comes back in, and I felt like it was kind of missing something. So I actually copied over the bass stem from the chorus and added it here to keep the energy up.
So you added the sub.
Yeah, I brought the sub back in at a lower level, not as intense as the drop, but
Okay.
Yeah,
guys, bass is very important. If you just add bass to certain parts of the song, it literally makes or breaks a song. And it's like adding professionalism to it that, a lot of times we do stuff and we produce a song and we're stuck in the song. We forget this might be just too damn loud or this is missing. And that's why the engineer and having a friend to help you is so important in the process.
100%. So I'll play this section without the bass.
You don't have to be friends with your engineer, by the way, but thankfully you are friends. But you don't have to be, but you should try to develop some kind of friendship.
Yeah, it helps to have great communication.
And that way you can just be upfront and blunt about things, being like, I don't like the sound of this. And if you're more friends, it kind of helps the process, or it hurts their feelings, and it is what it is. It is what it is.
Well, as an engineer, I'm always trying to do, how can I make this song as great as possible? Because it's your song as much as it is mine, because I'm putting my name on the work that I do. So I really want to make sure that I'm doing everything in my efforts to make the song as great as possible. So if that means I have ideas for arrangement and moving sections around, I'm going to throw those out there. And it doesn't mean we have to do them, but I think a mix should be a collaborative process. And it doesn't always need to be like you just send your stems off to the guy and then he sends it back and that's it. Like, I love that we can have open communication and make sure we're getting the best song possible, because I want you to succeed, and the work I work on, I want it to do well.
For sure. No, exactly.
Yeah. So let's hear that section. So see, we're building, but it didn't feel like we're building. It felt like
it's just subtle. You just add in the sub subtly right in there.
Yeah.
All right, so basically, once the drop is kind of settled, the elements are throughout the track, so it's not that difficult to mix and master from there.
Yeah.
You do a sweep through the track, but now, okay, so all the elements are balanced. The mastering part, I feel like, is where you can literally destroy a song, because I've seen it happen time and time again, where there's too much stuff added, it's too compressed.
Yeah.
How are you looking at the mastering section of this track?
Yeah, so Niko makes a great point there. Mastering is an easy way to completely blow all the hard work you did in the mix, guys. So
I've seen it happen too many times.
It is so easy to mess up. Guys, mastering is not the section to fix all your problems. That's what you do in the mix.
And by fixing problems, you mean the snap is too loud.
Yep.
The bass is not cutting through. Like this hi-hat sounds, it's gonna hurt my ear.
Yep.
That's what the problems are, right?
Yeah, you can't fix, if you hate your kick, you can't fix it in mastering.
Right.
Nothing is gonna fix that. So if we have a mix done that we're happy with the balance of everything, we like the tone of it, now we're sending it sending it down to one channel here for mastering.
Now, when you're mixing, by the way, do you have anything on any plugins that you're running on your master bus, or no? You have it just a limiter? Or
sometimes I like to work with a limiter, but the longer I do this, I prefer to just have nothing on it, because I want to hear exactly what's coming out. Because if I start putting limiters and compressors on it, that's going to influence the moves I'm making in the mix. If I'm turning the volume up or something,
For sure.
you might have a clap that's 6 dB too loud in your mix, but you don't know because your compressor's going nuts on the master channel, and then it's like you're not letting the track get its full potential.
And guys, when I first started producing, it just wasn't like I didn't understand how to saturate things, how to EQ things, how to do things, and it just sounded bad. So I'd throw tons of stuff on the mastering chain to make it sound better, right? Because it will sound better with certain plugins, but in the end, you don't have a great product, and when you send it to engineer, it's dull and lifeless, and you don't really control it. So if you can make it sound as good as possible, I just have a limiter on mine just to make it a little bit louder.
No, there's nothing wrong with a lot of engineers use limiters, and if you can, a way to work around, when you want to work and hear it loud and how it's going to sound finished. What I like to do is just crank my speakers up. I can crank them really loud, so I'm getting that feeling of like it's limited. But I'm not losing, my dynamics while I'm mixing.
Okay, so can you walk us through the mastering chain here and kind of what you're doing and the moves you're making to make this sound professional and full?
Absolutely, guys. So first thing on my mastering chain is some form of EQ, and usually I'm doing some mid-side EQ. Like we were talking about earlier, the sides is kind of that outside information, and on most tracks, I like to take out the sides from the low end, the deep lows, because that's gonna like get in the way when I'm really trying to push my master. It's gonna sound weird if there's a bunch of wide sub bass.
Gotcha.
So I'm doing some small EQ there. You can hear what's coming out. It's all that stuff is gonna muddy up the master when I try to push it as loud as possible. Then here I'm just doing some small moves. I heard some mud here. And some frequencies I didn't like.
It's very subtle, though, what you're doing.
Super subtle, guys. Super subtle. After that, I got the Soundtech EQ. I know it looks like lots going on here. This is a modeling of a $10,000 analog EQ. Personally, I didn't want to spend $10,000 on an EQ, so I got the plug-in.
Yeah, look at the graph.
Look at the graph. Yeah, they had added this cool graph too, because we're all, in the modern era, we're used to these graph EQs. But don't get fooled. This is just this is a left and right channel. It's a mirrored. And all we got going on here is a high shelf. I'm doing a small move at 12K, 1 dB. At 50 hertz, I'm doing a low shelf. You can see that. That's only 1 dB. And then, I wanted to push the kick and the bass a little bit at 50 hertz, 1 dB. And, 125 here, I felt like the kick and bass were clashing, so I took out another dB. And then a low push at 8K, because that's where a lot of the presence is. So I'll play this on and off, and you guys can hear it.
So because that bass, you can feel.
Yeah, it really fills it out. Because I want to
yeah.
process everything together. Because I process the kick separate, the bass separate, but now I want them to glue together. So that's why I'm making EQ moves. Next, we got some gluey type compression. This is the type of compression that just makes everything feel like they're meant to be together. So super small, only doing like 2 dB compression there. Next, we got the inflator.
It's a big move.
These are some pretty crazy settings. Some people are probably going to get some pushback for this one. But the context of this is I was reading the manual for the inflator, and one of the things it mentions is to get the most saturation from the plugin, put it at 100%, and then adjust the input and output. And you know what? I tried it, and I loved how it sounded, so I kept it. There's no rules to mixing, guys. You can't make any rules to this stuff. It's just what sounds good and what doesn't sound good.
It sounded good at 100, you keep it at 100. Sometimes it sounds good.
Sometimes
I use 60. Very good engineers use it at 60.
Absolutely. Some tracks I don't even use it. So every track is different. For this one, I loved what it was doing, so I kept it.
Now, quick thing on this, just because it sounds loud, guys, if you notice on his thing, it has an increase. It has like a decrease of the output because it's just weird how these plugins work. It's the same volume, but the perceived loudness, and this is an engineering thing, the perceived loudness is louder, which is kind of what you want. It sounds more full and it sounds more, it just sounds better, right? That's the best way to describe it. So you're basically, it's kind of the same volume, but you're just adding more fullness to it. Because if you look at the
absolutely, just kind of it adds. there's no. We don't know exactly what the inflator does. They haven't released what it does, but it basically adds harmonics. It's a saturation plugin, which is just gonna make stuff feel a little bit louder and more full. So after the inflator, I went over here to the Pro MB, and I just wanted the kick and bass to glue even more together. So.
Yeah, it's giving it like a nice additional thump in the low end that gives it a nice vibe. So you're basically compressing the lower part.
Exactly.
That's what multi-band compression is. You're not like compressing the higher part.
Yeah, I didn't want to touch. I liked how the mids were sounding, the high end was sounding, but I really wanted the lows to just glue even more.
Of course. All right, and then from there, what's the
after that? I added the standard clip, and so all this is doing, guys, is I'm doing some clipping in order to maximize my loudness.
And by clipping, it's not like it cuts the high. Like if there's frequencies that are
it's taking off it's shaving off the peaks a little bit.
Okay.
You can actually see it up here on the top. So every song has peaks. That's not going to show up very well because it's limited.
If you show this thing down here, though, it's good. This has
so at the bottom you can see what's getting shaved off. So anytime I'm shaving off, I'm just shaving off a little bit of the kick, the clap, stuff that's going to hit my limiter, and it's going to make my limiter go crazy. So if I can control those a little bit, that allows me to get some additional loudness at the end.
Gotcha.
And some punch. Yeah. So if you look at the bottom, you can see what's getting shaved off. Not a ton.
It's subtle stuff,
Yeah.
and again, these moves are all the moves have been made up to this point, so you're not clipping tons of things, or you're not having to do crazy aggressive moves on the mastering chain, right? There's
Absolutely.
None of these moves, other than Oxford Inflator, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
None of these moves are like aggressive moves that
Yeah.
you're like adding 5 dB here or something. Some songs might need it, but you don't want to do that on the mastering stage. You don't want to fix problems there.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. So next I used the God Particle. Yeah, this is a cool plugin. This is created by Jason Joshua, a famous mixing engineer, and this thing is cool. So it's got EQ, it's got multiband compression, it's got some limiting in it, and I'll kind of break down what I'm doing. The first thing I had to do was kind of set the input gain. I wanted it to be hitting right. Gain staging is crucial for this type of plugin because if I don't have enough gain going into it, the multiband's not going to be doing anything, and the EQs aren't going to be hitting correctly. So I just added some gain, and then I made some small EQ moves here. So I really wanted the lows to be filled out, so I added 2.2 dB and pushed the highs a little bit, and then this 148, that's kind of like the multiband saturation glue. So I'll play this and I'll mess with it, and you can hear what I was doing. So you can kind of hear when it goes to 200, it gets a little bit harsh, so I wanted to tame that back. So after we got that dialed in, it hits the limiter. This is the last piece of this plugin. That's where we're kind of getting all of our loudness from. And if you look here, you can see it's only doing about 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction. And I like how the limiter was sounding. Sometimes I don't always use this limiter because sometimes it can be really pumpy and it doesn't work for the track, but it worked for this, so I kept it.
Right. So so first of all, my two questions. The first one, the amount is just being determined based off of your expertise. All your years of doing this stuff is how you're coming to, this is going to be the amount I'm going to use. My ears have been trained. This is what's going to sound good commercially on the radio.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to figure this stuff out, really.
Yeah. You gotta just try it, guys. You gotta try plugins. You gotta overdo it, underdo it, and you can hear how it's manipulating the sound.
Okay, and then from there, I see you have another limiter on it. You have the Pro L too.
The last I just got this Pro L just to catch any miscellaneous peaks. It's just set at -0.2.
Gotcha.
Nothing crazy going on there. Literally adding no gain. It's just catching any errant peaks.
Okay.
And that's it, guys.
Yeah, I mean, so basically we went through everything. You went through how I sent him the stems, how he organizes it, then from there, where he starts, how he ends, and goes through the whole process. Again, this song would not have sounded anywhere near as good without his help. and it just made the song sound tremendously great. I love how it sounds. You might not like it, but that's in the end, we create art for others, but we also should feel good about the art we create. And that's this mixing and mastering took this to the next level. So I'll also leave links down below to work with Ryan. He's probably really busy, as you can probably tell, but he does have some spots available to work with him. So I'll leave a link down below if you guys want to. Again, I'm not even getting anything from this. It's just literally if you guys, he's a great engineer and also a great producer as well. And it's only getting better from here, and you can see kind of the progress of the track. So if you have anything else you want to say,
I appreciate that, Niko. Thank you so much for having me. And guys, reach out. I would love to talk about your music and any projects you're working on. My DMs are always open.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Again, comment down below Chord Master if you want a chance to win that chord pack. It's been a pleasure being here. Hope you guys found value from this. Let me know what else you want to learn. Hit that subscribe, hit that like, comment, do all the stuff on YouTube. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
I would just fly away.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't seen the first version where I talk more about the production and the songwriting, you'll see it on the screen now. Click it, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below to have a chance to win those 100,000 chord progressions. Can't wait to see what we're going to make, and I'll see you soon.